My name is Emily, and I never imagined that my stepsister's perfect wedding would compete with my life for priority. At 25, I was diagnosed with a serious kidney condition, just as Amanda, my stepsister, was planning her dream wedding. The timing felt cruel, but it revealed exactly where I stood in my family's hierarchy. I wasn't always the overlooked one. Growing up, it was just dad, mom, and me in a modest but loving home. That changed when mom passed away from breast cancer when I was 12. Her loss left a void in our lives. 6 months later, dad met Sarah at a grief support group. She had a daughter, Amanda, 2 years younger than me. Within a year, we became a blended family that seemed straight out of a Hallmark movie, on the surface at least. At first, everything felt promising. Sarah was kind, albeit a bit reserved, and Amanda and I coexisted peacefully. We shared clothes, studied together, and played the part of the happy family. Dad looked happy again, which was all I cared about. But as the years went on, small cracks started to show. When Amanda needed braces, she got the best invisible ones. When I needed them a year later, money was suddenly tight, and I got metal braces. For her 16th birthday, Amanda received a car. I got driving lessons and a nudge to start saving up. These little discrepancies added up, but I convinced myself I was being too sensitive. Sarah was Amanda's mother, after all, and Dad, I figured, was just trying to keep the peace. I worked hard to compensate, earning scholarships and juggling part-time jobs to put myself through school. By the time I graduated and started working at a marketing firm, Amanda was still living at home, finding herself and working part-time at a boutique. I told myself that wasn't my business until the headaches started. At first, I dismissed them as stress from staring at a screen all day, but they got worse, accompanied by swelling, dizziness, and fatigue. One morning, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. My face was so bloated it felt foreign. A doctor's visit confirmed my fears: chronic kidney disease. It would worsen without immediate surgery, followed by dialysis and eventually a transplant. The cost? $85,000 after insurance. I didn't know where to turn. My savings were modest, and my insurance barely scratched the surface. Desperate, I brought it up at our next family dinner, where Amanda was already in full wedding planning mode. She showed off her massive ring while Sarah beamed with pride. When dessert came, I finally spoke. My voice trembled as I explained my condition, the surgery I needed, and the staggering cost. I asked for help, knowing it was a lot but hoping my family would rally around me. Dad looked troubled. Sarah pursed her lips, and Amanda avoided my gaze. "That's a lot of money," Dad finally said, glancing at Sarah. "We've already committed to Amanda's wedding," Sarah added. "The deposits alone are nearly $50,000. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "I'm not asking for all of it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just anything you can manage. I'll take loans for the rest." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe after the wedding, we can reassess." I blinked, stunned. "The surgery can't wait. The doctors say 6 weeks max." Amanda finally looked at me, her face pinched with irritation. "You're being selfish, Emily. This is my wedding, my special day. You can't expect us to ruin it because of your health issues." Her words stung, but Sarah's cut deeper. "Amanda's right. You're young and strong. You can handle being sick a little longer. This wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event." I turned to Dad, silently pleading with him to step in, to defend me. He stared at his plate, pushing a crumb of pie around with his fork. "I see," I said quietly, rising from the table. The legs of my chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Thanks for making your priorities clear." "Emily, don't be dramatic," Sarah called as I grabbed my bag. "We're just being practical." I didn't respond. I closed the door behind me and sat in my car, staring at the house where laughter and wedding chatter continued as though nothing had happened. 3 months later, I had scraped together enough for the surgery, loans, credit cards, and sheer determination. My recovery was slow, and no one visited me in the hospital. Amanda sent a single text asking if I'd still fit into my bridesmaid dress after dialysis-related swelling. Life moved on. I returned to work, drowning in medical bills while juggling my job and dialysis. My family dinners became wedding planning sessions I no longer attended. Through it all, I wondered if Mom would have let this happen. Would she have allowed her daughter to struggle for survival while her husband funded another child's extravagant wedding? I thought the worst was behind me, but life wasn't done delivering its twists. One unexpected turn would force everyone, Amanda, Sarah, and even Dad, to confront the consequences of their choices. And this time, it wouldn't be me fighting alone. The call came on a Tuesday evening, just as I was getting ready for my dialysis session. My phone lit up with Dad's number, the first time he called in months. "Emily," he said, his voice trembling. "We need to talk. Can you come over?" I almost laughed. After months of silence, after choosing Amanda's wedding over my health, now they wanted to talk. "I'm about to start dialysis," I replied coldly. "Whatever it is can wait." "Sarah's sick," he blurted. "Her kidneys are failing. She needs a transplant." The irony hit me like a punch to the gut. Of all the possible health problems, it had to be kidney failure. I sat in silence, the only sound in the room the steady hum of my dialysis machine. Dad's voice continued, but it felt distant. "None of us are matches," he said, his voice breaking. "Not me, not Amanda. We've all been tested. The doctors say her blood type is rare, and the waiting list. They don't know if she has much time." I knew what was coming next. The storm was building. Would you get tested? To see if you're a match? 3 months of silence. 3 months of fighting medical bills, of hospital visits, of watching them plan an extravagant wedding while I barely scraped by. And now they wanted my kidney. "I'll think about it," I said, my voice flat, before hanging up. The next day, I went to the hospital, not to get tested, but for my regular checkup. Dr. Chen, who had been treating me since my diagnosis, noticed something was off. "Your blood pressure is higher than usual," she said, scanning my charts. "Is everything okay?" Before I knew it, I was telling her everything about Sarah's diagnosis, Dad's call, the wedding, and how they'd abandoned me when I needed them most. Dr. Chen listened quietly, then said something that stopped me cold. "Emily, did they tell you that kidney donors often can't donate if they have kidney disease themselves?" I stared at her. "What your condition is genetic," she explained gently. "You're on the transplant list yourself. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't donate. Not without seriously risking your own life." I felt a weight lift off me, but it was quickly replaced by guilt. Why did I feel relieved? Shouldn't I want to help Sarah? But Dr. Chen wasn't finished. "What concerns me is that your family didn't know this. Didn't they ask about your condition? About your treatment?" They hadn't. Not once in 3 months had they asked how I was doing. They'd been too consumed with wedding plans. That evening, I got another call, this time from Amanda. "Why aren't you answering Dad's calls?" she demanded. "Don't you care that Mom is dying? Like you cared when I was dying." I snapped back. "That's different. You're young. You can handle it. Mom needs help now." "I can't donate," I said flatly. "I have kidney disease too, remember? The one you all ignored while planning your perfect wedding." There was a long pause. "Well, can't you at least get tested? Maybe they were wrong about your diagnosis. I'm on the transplant list myself, Amanda. I literally need a kidney too." Another pause. But Mom's condition is serious. "So is mine. Has been for months. But you were all too busy picking out flower arrangements to notice." The line went dead. An hour later, my phone exploded with messages. Dad begging me to reconsider, Sarah writing long paragraphs about family obligations, Amanda alternating between guilt-tripping and threats. I blocked them all. A week later, I was leaving the dialysis center when I saw them, Dad, Sarah, and Amanda, standing by my car. Sarah looked awful, pale, swollen, just like I had months ago when I was at my worst. "Emily, please," Dad started. "We need to talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," I said, trying to move past them to my car. "I literally cannot donate. End of story." "But you haven't even tried." Amanda cried. "You haven't even gotten tested." "Because I'm already sick," I shouted, my patience snapping. "I'm on dialysis 3 times a week. I'm on the transplant list. I have the same condition Sarah has." "You're lying," Sarah said suddenly, her voice sharp. "You're just saying that because you're angry about the wedding money." I stared at her, incredulous. "You think I'm lying about being sick? Where do you think I just came from?" I gestured toward the dialysis center behind me. "Where have I been every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the past 3 months? If you were really that sick, you would have told us," Dad said weakly. "I did tell you." My voice cracked. "I told you I needed surgery. I told you I was sick. You chose to spend the money on Amanda's wedding instead. You ignored my calls, my texts. You chose not to visit me in the hospital. You chose flowers and table settings over my life. That's not fair, Amanda protested. It was my wedding. And this was my life, I screamed. I could have died. I still could die. But none of you cared as long as Amanda got her perfect day. Security was approaching now, drawn by our shouting, but I wasn't done. You want to know the really funny part? I laughed bitterly, tears streaming down my face. If you had helped me with my surgery when I first asked, if you had spent even half of what you spent on that wedding on my medical care, I might have been healthy enough to donate now. But you didn't. You made your choice, and now we all have to live with it. I got in my car and drove away, leaving them standing there. In my rearview mirror, I saw Dad holding Sarah as she cried, while Amanda stood awkwardly, probably realizing for the first time that her perfect wedding might cost her mother's life. That night, alone in my apartment, I stared at old family photos. Photos from before Mom died, when Dad's love felt unconditional. Photos from the early days of our blended family when we really tried to make it work. Photos from Amanda's engagement party where I had smiled through my pain to keep the peace. My phone kept lighting up with messages from unknown numbers, extended family members, each telling me how selfish I was, how I was letting Sarah die, how a daughter should sacrifice everything for her mother. But Sarah wasn't my mother. My mom had died 13 years ago, and with her, the father who would have moved mountains for his daughter. The father who now couldn't even be bothered to visit me in the hospital. As I sat there, hooked up to my dialysis machine, I wondered what Mom would think of all this. Would she understand my refusal? Or would she be disappointed in me? Then I remembered something she had said near the end. Love shouldn't hurt, Emily. Not like this. When someone loves you, really loves you, they don't make you choose between their happiness and your survival. I looked at my reflection in the window, my tired eyes, my swollen face. I thought about the crushing debt, the lonely hospital stays, the missed work days, and Amanda's $100,000 wedding. Money that could have saved my life. They had made their choice. Now they had to live with it, just like I had to live with mine. But life wasn't done with us yet. 6 months later, the news came. I was at work when my cousin Rachel called. Sarah got a transplant. She's going to be okay. I felt my knees go weak. That's good. It wasn't Amanda. Rachel continued, her voice quieter. She backed out at the last minute, said she couldn't risk her health with the baby coming. I hadn't known Amanda was pregnant. Life goes on, I suppose. Dad donated his kidney, Rachel added softly. He's in recovery now. I sat at my desk processing it all. Dad had donated his kidney. The same dad who couldn't spare money for my surgery had given up an organ for his wife. I couldn't make sense of it. A week later, I got an email from Dad. He was home from the hospital, recovering well. Sarah was doing better. He wanted to talk. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop, a neutral place. He looked older, worn down, still moving carefully, as though each step reminded him of what he'd given up. I understand now, he said, his voice thick with emotion. What it feels like to be in that hospital bed. To need help, and his words trailed off. And have no one there. I finished for him. He nodded, tears welling in his eyes. I failed you, Emily. I failed you so completely, and I don't know how to fix it. You can't, I said simply. Some things can't be fixed. 3 months later, Amanda gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Sarah, after her grandmother. I found out through Rachel. I wasn't invited to meet my niece. My condition stabilized with regular treatment. The doctors are optimistic about a transplant within the year. I'm doing okay. Sarah recovered fully. She and Dad sold their house to pay off Amanda's wedding debt and medical bills. They now live in a small apartment. Amanda and Mark moved to another state for his job. Then, last week, I received a package. Inside was Amanda's wedding album and a letter from Sarah. I look at these photos now, she wrote, and all I see is what we lost. $100,000 worth of flowers and food and decorations, and we lost something priceless. We lost you. I put the album in my closet without opening it. Some memories are better left unexplored. Dad still sends emails now and then. He tells me about his recovery, Sarah's progress, the apartment. He ends every email the same way. I love you. I'm sorry. I understand if you never forgive me. I haven't responded yet. Maybe someday I will. Yesterday, I passed a bridal shop. In the window was a massive wedding dress, probably worth thousands. I thought about Amanda in her perfect dress, about Sarah in her hospital gown, about Dad in his recovery bed. Sometimes the most expensive things in life aren't the ones with price tags. Sometimes it's the things we lose when we choose wrong. The relationships we break, the trust we shatter, the love we take for granted. I'm still on dialysis, still waiting for my transplant. But I'm not waiting alone anymore. My friends from work visit regularly. Rachel calls every day. I've built my own family, one that doesn't make me choose between their happiness and my survival. Mom was right. Love shouldn't hurt like that. The wedding album sits in my closet, gathering dust. Inside are pictures of the perfect day that cost us everything. Someday maybe I'll open it. Someday maybe I'll respond to Dad's emails. Someday maybe I'll meet my niece. But not today. Today, I'm focusing on healing, not just my kidneys, but my heart too. Because sometimes the most important choice isn't between life and death, but between holding on and letting go.